Can you believe that the girl who was locked in a basement for 3 years by her own mother and sister, accompanied only by rats, was originally a wealthy heiress of a prestigious family? At this moment, she is nothing but skin and bones, barely clinging to life. She pleads, "Mother, believe me, I didn't do those things." Her younger sister, pretending to be pleading, adds, "Mother, sister didn't do it on purpose. Please let her go. Let her go." The woman referred to as mother, like hearing a joke, lifts her foot and stomps on the girl with her sharp heel. She cruelly says, "This wretched creature has brought shame upon me. Well, she won't live much longer anyway. After she dies, we'll throw her out to feed the dogs." As the girl writhed on the ground, struggling like a crawling creature, her doll-like younger sister revealed a wicked smile. The pitiful girl lying on the ground thinks to herself, death would be better. Living in this world is too painful. She was too naive to see through the ambitions of these wolves. Her adopted younger sister, who once seemed kind, had taken everything away from her in an instant. After the woman left, the sister who had just appeared gentle and pleasant slaps the girl in the face and sneers, "What are you looking at? She is my mother now, and I am the only precious daughter of the Xue family." Her sister feigned sympathy and said, "Don't worry, just die quickly. Lingchen told me that he feels disgusted being with this disfigured monster. I am the one he truly loves." The girl couldn't resist, and memories flooded the back of the handsome man who had once been incredibly gentle with her. She had willingly forsaken other men for him, only to be betrayed in the end. Suddenly, a voice comes from the entrance, "Darling, haven't you had enough fun yet?" A man walks up the stairs and, upon seeing the girl on the ground, shows a disgusted expression and says, "This wretched bug is still alive." Her sister pretends to say sympathetically, "Yes, I can't do it myself, after all, she's my sister." "Sister? Xiaoro, you're too kind. How can this filthy girl be your sister?" The man takes out a Swiss Army knife and slowly approaches. The glint of silver flashes, and the girl's heart sprays blood, staining the ground. "See, it's that simple. Just throw her out to feed the dogs." The girl's eyes widened as she felt her body gradually becoming cold and weak. Her pupils reflected the image of an unscrupulous couple embracing each other. How wonderful! Her biological mother and fiancé both praised Xue Xue for her kindness and wanted to throw her away to feed the dogs. Truly, she has failed as a human being. Xue Xue, if there is an afterlife, remember these two people, especially remember this doll-like face. Pain, it hurts so much, but the physical pain cannot compare to the torment she experiences in her mind. From being the high and mighty noble lady of the Xue family to crawling like a reptile in the dark basement. Even if it means plunging into hell, she will never accept such humiliation. The girl, who was imprisoned by her fiancé and family, ultimately died when the person she loved dug out her heart. If there were a next life, she would surely remember the actions of these individuals. It hurts so much. Would you still feel pain even if you're dead? Xue Xue struggled to open her eyes. Every part of her body felt like it had been shattered, reminiscent of the scene from her car accident when she was 15. How is this possible? Wasn't me dead? "Miss, are you okay?" came the concerned voice of the driver, Uncle Chin. Wasn't this driver, who had been by her grandfather's side since childhood, killed in the accident arranged by Xue Xue? She propped herself up and took out her phone, looking at the date displayed on it, tears involuntarily streaming down her face. Today's date is. She had actually gone back 3 months prior to Xue Xue's arrival at the Xue family. She still remembered that the car accident had been orchestrated by her cousin, Ling Xuang. However, in her naivety and foolishness at the time, she easily believed it was an unintentional mistake on Ling Xuang's part. Struggling to get out of the car, she was greeted by her cousin, Ling Xuang. Ling Xuang reached out to support her, but intentionally pushed with force towards her most severely injured waist. If that palm had truly pushed her, her already injured waist would likely have been dislocated. How foolish she was in her previous life, failing to see the jealousy and cruelty hidden in Ling Xuang's eyes. She slapped her cousin without hesitation. How could Xue Xue dare to lay a hand on me? Ling Xuang thought in astonishment. She knew well that Xue Xue was just a pitiful wretch, unloved by her parents, always obedient to her. And today, she had been slapped by her. "Sorry, as soon as I got out of the car, something unknown flew towards me. Xue Xue continued as if genuinely concerned. I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention. Did I hurt you? Indeed, Xue Xue is just a well-trained pet I've had since long ago. How could she suddenly rebel against me? Thinking that Xue Xue was still the same foolish girl from before, Ling Shuang began her act, tears streaming down as if deeply wronged. It's okay, it wasn't intentional, I'm not hurt. In the past, Xue Xue would have immediately comforted Ling Shuang. However, this time she waited, but there was no consolation from Xue Xue. Instead, it was the driver, Chen Shu, who spoke up. Miss, there's something fishy about this accident. I clearly swerved to avoid it, but Miss Ling Shuang's car still collided with us. He had already reported this matter to Master Xue. Although he had long known that Ling Shuang was not a good person, Miss always trusted her unconditionally, offering her food and necessities. He never expected such a backstabber to be raised under his nose. From being the noble young lady to falling into the plight of a mocked beggar, that was Xue Xue's previous life's ending. Opening her eyes again, she returned to the past, back to the scene of her cousin, Ling Shuang's deliberate scheming that led to her accident in her previous life. At this moment, Ling Shuang was tearfully explaining, I didn't mean to. It's just that the driver mentioned a slight issue with the steering wheel. You know my family isn't as wealthy as yours, we can't simply replace a car for such a minor problem. Her tears and vulnerability evoked immediate sympathy. Besides, you're not seriously hurt. Can you forgive me this time, please? Xue Xue sneered inwardly, her ribs almost broken, spine injured, blood still trickling from her forehead. So, this was what Ling Shuang considered not seriously hurt. How blind she had been before, letting Ling Shuang off easily. In this life, she had no intention of being so tolerant again. She sneered, shouldn't there be a car as compensation then? Mistakenly thinking Xue Xue intended to gift her a car, Ling Shuang felt a surge of joy. Xue Xue was indeed her obedient pet, sitting when told to sit, standing when told to stand. Ling Shuang decided she would make Xue Xue buy her a limited edition sports car she had long desired but couldn't afford. Before Ling Shuang could respond, Xue Xue spoke. But, it's not me gifting you the car, it's sister Ling Shuang compensating me for the car. Ling Shuang lifted her head abruptly, disbelief in her eyes as Xue Xue continued. This car was a gift from my grandfather for my 15th birthday. There are fewer than 20 in the world. Considering our sisterly relationship, I won't ask you to cover my medical expenses as compensation. Hearing this, Ling Shuang seemed greatly shaken. She couldn't believe that the previously obedient Xue Xue dared to demand compensation. In her mind, not killing her was already a favor. She exclaimed, "You dare ask me to compensate?" Seeing Ling Shuang's typically compliant face distort in anger, Xue Xue's smile emerged as she asked, "Ling Shuang, are you sure you're talking to me?" The frigid tone struck a chord of panic in Ling Shuang. Xue Xue's influence from a prominent family was beyond her own. Xue Xue had been overly kind to her over the years, so much that she forgot Xue Xue was originally someone she should have looked up to. Realizing this reality, Ling Shuang suppressed her rage, clutching Xue Xue's arm, and pleasingly said, "Xue Xue, you're just joking, right?" Xue Xue had run out of patience, withdrawing her arm, her previous smile gone, and stated, "Let my grandfather discuss the specific compensation with your father." In her previous life, she had personally pleaded with her grandfather to pardon Ling Shuang's family, disappointing her grandfather and causing him to neglect her, which ultimately allowed her sister Xue Ro to successfully drive a wedge between her and their grandfather. Uncle Qin, standing aside, smiled contentedly. Xue Xue's actions this time surprised him. This was the kind of girl that old Master Xue had raised. The reformed Xue Xue displayed her intelligence and determination. Panic crept into Ling Shuang's heart. She never anticipated things would escalate to this point. She hurriedly knelt, wailing, attempting to defend herself. But Xue Xue didn't give her another chance. With blood-stained fingertips, Xue Xue gently traced Ling Shuang's cheek. Her eyes were tender, her smile sweet, but her voice laced with mockery. "Sister, I've returned." Returning from her reincarnation, Xue Xue punished her malicious cousin, but this was just the beginning of her revenge. The morning sunlight streamed gently into the luxurious villa as a girl descended the stairs, her beautiful face as delicate as a sculpture. This was Xue Xue, 3 months into her rebirth, gracefully taking her seat. She nodded to the maid behind her, eliciting a shy yet grateful smile. "Xue Xue, did you stay up studying late again last night?" inquired the elegant lady in a qipao, her mother Yunru. Since Xue Xue's accident, she seemed transformed. From rebellious mischief to obedient maturity, she had evolved from a troublesome child into an exemplary student. Consecutive top rankings at the academy over 3 months proved her excellence, satisfying her usually strict mother, Yunru. Beside her, Xue Xue's father, Xue Jing, gazed upon this scene with gentle warmth. Previously unenthusiastic about his daughter due to his loveless, solely familial marriage, he now started to reflect, feeling remorseful for neglecting his daughter. In just 3 months, Xue Xue had turned her authoritative grandfather into a doting figure and garnered attention from her formerly indifferent parents. Even her cousin Ling Shuang dared not show up in her presence. Norton Business Academy, the nation's foremost school for nobility, admitted only 2 kinds of people, geniuses or nobles. Xue Xue was initially an ordinary student, relying on her family status for admission, but now, everything had changed. Outstanding grades combined with exquisite looks made her immensely popular at the academy. Even classmates who once bullied her now blushed while stealing glances at her. Even the teachers treated her differently. Perfect family background, flawless appearance, outstanding grades. Every time she received compliments, Xue Xue would shyly purse her lips. Instead of being arrogant about her excellence, she prompted reflection in those who once envied her, but she knew she resembled more of a lunatic than perfection. Her experiences from her past life made her distrust human emotions. Her own soul had long twisted. On the way home from school, the driver, Uncle Chin, watched the elegantly poised Xue Xue in the car, feeling sympathetic. "Miss, studies must be exhausting." Xue Xue shook her head, finding joy in this kind of hardship compared to the dismal ending of her previous life. Furthermore, although she had diligently changed many things after her rebirth, she never forgot the significant events awaiting her tomorrow. Reborn after 3 months of effort, Xue Xue had finally succeeded in changing everyone's impression of her. Could she truly alter her own destiny this time? "I'm back." Xue Xue returned home from school and casually handed her backpack to the maid. "How was your day, Xue Xue?" Yunru looked at Xue Xue and inquired. Xue Xue smiled in response, "Not bad." "Mother, you must have had a hard day at work today." In name, a portion of the Xue family's business was passed down from the patriarch to his son, Xue Jing. However, in reality, it is being managed by Yunru, a woman of strong controlling tendencies. "How's the preparation for next week's exams? Make sure to rank first this time too." Yunru looked at Xue Xue with pride. Her daughter's excellence was a topic she could boast about everywhere. Facing her mother's seemingly caring but actually domineering inquiries, Xue Xue gently replied with a smile, "Shouldn't be a problem." This was her mother, lacking genuine care, only focused on the vanity her daughter brought. It was only by consistently maintaining the top spot, becoming the exemplary student in everyone's eyes, that she could obtain this so-called maternal love. What a profitable transaction it was. Yunru's mood improved even more. She praised Xue Xue, patting her cheek, "My good daughter, excellent." Then she instructed the maid, "I won't be having breakfast at home tomorrow. I'll be going to the Compassion Orphanage for charity." Compassion Orphanage. Hearing this name, Xue Xue thought to herself, a familiar name indeed. This time, Xue Rou couldn't get close to me by donating blood. How will she try to get in? Those people's persistent attempts to enter the Xue family couldn't be coincidental. Turning her head to her mother, Xue Xue said, "Mother, you've worked hard today. Make sure to rest early tonight." Yunru was extremely satisfied to receive her daughter's concern. Since the accident, this typically disagreeable daughter had finally become a child who pleased her. However, once back in her room, Xue Xue's smile turned eerie. It was said that Xue Rou had been raised personally by the director of the Compassion Orphanage since childhood, known as the most obedient and well-behaved girl there. Unexpectedly, her mother was visiting this orphanage again. "Sister, are we about to meet soon?" With such thoughts, Xue Xue's gaze held a hint of madness. Xue Xue had her parents, fiancé, and even her life taken away by a girl in her past life. Now, in her reincarnated state, she is about to face this doll-like girl once again. Several luxury cars parked outside the Compassion Orphanage. Xue Xue's mother, Yunru, stepped out of one of the cars, welcomed by the obsequious director of the orphanage. Yunru glanced at the children present, each holding flowers and signs of welcome, all displaying an age-inappropriate mix of anticipation and dread in their eyes. Her gaze fell upon one little girl, resembling a doll with her extraordinary beauty. Especially captivating were the girl's admiring eyes and cautious smile, enough to draw anyone toward her. Meanwhile, Xue Xue sat in a classroom, lost in thought as she gazed out the window. In her previous life, her rebelliousness led her mother to impulsively adopt Xue Rou, who appeared docile but was actually malicious. It was an attempt to set an example for Xue Xue. But now, in this life where she had become so obedient, would her mother make the same choice? Xue Xue smiled faintly, eagerly anticipating how events would unfold. After school, the Norton Business School was bustling. The driver, Uncle Chin, was already waiting at the entrance, observing Xue Xue's cheerful mood and couldn't resist asking, "Miss, something exciting happened today?" Xue Xue beamed, "Yes, I'm looking forward to something that's about to happen." She was anticipating the arrival of her good little sister. Upon arriving home, she noticed the butler and servants waiting at the door. "Miss, welcome home," they greeted. Observing the household, she felt a bit disappointed, not finding the figure she anticipated. The butler hurriedly explained, "Madam hasn't returned home today." "Ah, I see. Then I'll go upstairs first," Xue Xue thought, deciding to wait a bit longer. The maids couldn't help but feel moved. This beautiful and gentle young lady seemed like an angel. The reason they hadn't noticed this kindness before might be because Xue Xue had usually resided with the Master Xue, returning home occasionally with an aloof demeanor, not getting close to everyone. Hearing the sound of a car engine turning off and the door opening, a smile flickered across Xue Xue's face. "Madam, welcome." The butler's voice abruptly ceased, as if stunned. His gaze shifted to the doll-like girl beside Yunru, who seemed somewhat scared and shy, hiding behind her. Perplexed, he inquired, "Who is this?" Yunru replied, "She's Xiao Rou, raised in the orphanage. I think she's quite pitiful, so I brought her home." Yunru rarely showed kindness. But this time, for some reason, she wanted to adopt this little girl. However, she already regretted the impulsive decision. Yet, witnessing the girl's timid behavior and the way she held Yunru's finger earlier, Yunru's limited motherly instincts flooded back. At this moment, Xue Xue descended the steps slowly. The girl behind Yunru lowered her head, concealing her envy and resentment. She thought to herself, "This is the real rich heiress, but it's okay. Just a little more waiting, and this grand mansion, the title of the Xue family heiress, everything will be mine. I've been groomed as a useful tool since childhood and won't lose to this ignorant heiress." Thinking this way, she looked up, pretending to be frightened, and cried out to Xue Xue, "Sister," as though Xue Xue were some sort of monster. What great acting! Xue Xue chuckled lightly, then wondered how she would deal with this pretense of a weak younger sister. Reborn and back in the fold, Xue Xue encountered her deceitful and cruel sister from her past life, Xue Rou. The first round of her revenge had begun. As Xue Xue beheld the tears in Xue Rou's pitiful eyes, she couldn't help but inwardly mock her past self. How had she been deceived by such a facade, treating Xue Rou with sisterly affection? Approaching, Xue Xue gently wiped away Xue Rou's tears and tenderly inquired, "Rou, why are you crying? Is there something that's not to your liking?" Caught off guard, Xue Rou froze. This wasn't unfolding as she'd planned. By her side, Yunru's expression darkened at the words. With this cry, others might think I forcefully brought her back home. With a contemptuous huff, Yunru seized Xue Xue's hand, addressing Xue Rou, "Why cry? Crying like this, perhaps you dislike being with my family." Panic-stricken, Xue Rou hastily explained she adored the Xue family, her tears a result of overwhelming joy. However strained her explanation, Yunru's attitude didn't waver. Contrasting with Xue Xue, she found Xue Rou, constantly teary, increasingly disagreeable. Impatiently waving her hand, she instructed the steward to escort Xue Rou to rest. Without further words, Xue Xue silently followed the steward, but as she departed, she glimpsed Yunru's gentle smile towards Xue Xue. Seeing their happiness together felt piercing, prompting her to tightly clench her fists, suppressing her anger and discontent. Yunru is so suspicious by nature, I mustn't incur her disfavor. This setback is small, I'll find a way, won't lose to Xue Xue again. Come evening, Xue Xue's father, Xue Jing, learned about the addition of the young girl to the household. Surprisingly, he found Xue Xue adorable due to her well-mannered behavior, eliciting continuous smiles from the couple. Witnessing this, Xue Xue couldn't help but feel triumphant. She'd slowly usurp their affection for Xue Xue and rightfully become the miss of the Xue family. Meanwhile, Xue Xue quietly dined as if oblivious to Xue Xue's scheming. Putting down her utensils, she stood, expressing her fullness to her parents, preparing to leave. Observing this, Xue Jing and Yunru, one with a smile, mentioned sending juice for her later, while the other gently reminded her to choose a dress. Seeing the care Xue Xue's parents showed her, Xue Xue felt like she had just been a clown entertaining others. She consoled herself, this is just the beginning, there's plenty of time. Unbeknownst to her, her actions were observed by servants and stewards, causing them to frown further and grow more averse to this ambitious girl. At night, Xue Xue, as usual, was studying in her room. This rebirth had taught her what truly wielded power. Feeling a bit drained, she stood up, opening the door to step out for some relaxation. Yet, she encountered an eerie figure in the dim hallway, with long, dark hair and an indistinct face, standing there like a ghost. Why wasn't there the expected scream? Xue Xue, puzzled, looked up to see a dark and sinister smiling face, unmovingly fixated on her. "Ah!" Xue Xue screamed loudly in terror. "My dear sister, this is the consequence of your malicious intentions." Xue Xue finally met the malicious Xue Xue again. This time, she intended to foil all of Xue Xue's plans. Oh! Xue Xue was terrified by Xue Xue's eerie smile and screamed loudly. This completely ruined Xue Xue's plan. She intended to provoke a scream from Xue Xue, causing her parents to resent their daughter. Unexpectedly, it was she who got frightened. Fearing her parents' reprimand, she started to act pitifully, chokingly saying, "Sister, do you hate me?" Xue Xue reached out and touched Xue Xue's hair, saying, "Hate? How could that be? Silly girl, I've been alone all my life. Having a sister with me makes me so happy." As Xue Xue spoke, she reached out and gently touched the girl's shoulder, but it made Xue Xue shiver. She took a step back, forcefully opening Xue Xue's palm. This scene was just witnessed by Xue Jing and Yunru. Both were shocked and furious. Yunru hurriedly examined Xue Xue's hand, looking at the obvious red marks. She was furious, assuming Xue Xue was a well-behaved and lovely child. She never expected her to bully her daughter. Xue Xue realized that Yunru was starting to disapprove of her. She quickly knelt down, crying and pleading, "Sister, I'm sorry. It's a reflex from being bullied at the orphanage. Don't drive me away, please." Her pitiful appearance evoked sympathy in Xue Jing and Yunru. Xue Xue quickly helped the kneeling girl up, gently wiping away her tears. "Ro, why would I drive you away? We must get along well." Xue Xue immediately pretended to express her gratitude upon hearing this. She once again secretly vowed, "I will definitely take everything away from Xue Xue and make her even more miserable than me." Yunru, seeing her daughter being so generous, while the girl from the orphanage acted so rude, lost her favor towards Xue Xue. She frowned, urging Xue Xue to go back to sleep, then turned to Xue Xue, becoming very gentle again, advising her to rest more. Xue Xue smiled and responded to Yunru, "Okay, thank you, Mom." She glanced at Xue Xue, who was still pretending to be pitiful, and thought to herself, everything is different from the past life. "Dear sister, what will you do?" After being reborn, 3 months later, Xue Xue once again confronted her archenemy from her past life, Xue Xue, changing her destiny once more. At this moment, in the ancestral home of the Xue family, Xue Xue tenderly and patiently massages Master Xue, only to realize after everything that her grandfather is the only one who genuinely cares for her. In her past life, she was too foolish, ignoring her grandfather's advice, which ultimately led the villains to take everything from her. "Xue Xue, you must be tired too. Take a rest," the Master Xue said, inviting her to sit beside him. Though his face remained as cold as ever, his eyes were full of concern. Then he asked, "Xue Xue, what do you think about your mother bringing back an orphan girl?" Taking the tea offered by the butler, Xue Xue replied, "It's mother's decision, and I have no choice." The master Xue frowned, saying, "I've investigated Xue Ro's background. Indeed, she grew up in the orphanage. But something doesn't feel right. If she becomes a threat to you, I'll find a way to make her disappear." Disagreeing, Xue Xue shook her head. Her grandfather's position would attract attention to any of his actions. Rash movements might cause him significant losses. "Xue Xue, I always taught you to be righteous and kind. But Xue Ro is too strange, and I'm worried about you." Sensing her grandfather's concern, Xue Xue reassured, "Grandfather, don't underestimate me. I have the ability to protect myself." The time spent enduring being trapped in the basement, enduring the bites of insects and ants, granted her exceptional willpower and endurance. She believed this version of herself wouldn't lose again. The master Xue sighed, choosing not to say more. Letting Xue Xue experience some setbacks was acceptable since he could protect her from the sidelines. Then, he brought up an upcoming gathering. A gathering? Xue Xue recalled her terrifying experience from her past life, where she was ridiculed by the crowd. Only a young man named Ling Qin reached out to help her. She saw him as her redemption, but all his aid and affection were part of his scheme. The Ling family's company was in a crucial phase of expansion at that time. Ling Qin needed to form an alliance with the Xue family, so he took advantage of the situation. Looking towards her grandfather, Xue Xue asked, "Must I attend?" Her grandfather responded, "This gathering is the birthday party of the young master of the Ji family. We must attend." The Ji family was the center of power and wealth in the country, shrouded in mystery, rarely engaging with the outside world. Their occasional gatherings were solely for the young master of the Ji family. Xue Xue stated her intention to attend the event, already planning. "In that case, I can only go and meet those enemies who tried everything to plot against me." Xue Xue learned that she had to attend the Ji family's banquet, which marked the beginning of her tragic fate in her past life. Unable to escape from it, she had no choice but to start planning her counterattack. Early that day, Xue Xue was taken by her mother Yunru to a high-end beauty salon for treatment. "Xue Xue, you're becoming more and more beautiful." Yunru examined her daughter. Her gaze didn't reflect a mother's tenderness, but rather resembled a merchant assessing the value of goods. She pondered, "Xue Xue is getting more outstanding. If she could marry into a top-tier family like the Ji family, could I also become someone revered by all?" Sensing her mother's increasingly fervent gaze, Xue Xue inquired curiously, "Mother, is there something wrong with me?" Yunru shook her head, smiling, "I'm just marveling at how beautiful my daughter is and wondering what kind of man she'll marry in the future." Pretending to be shy, Xue Xue lowered her head without answering. Only she knew that in this life, she no longer looked forward to marriage. In her past life, even familial bonds were fragile, not stronger than a paternity test. What genuine emotions could exist in this world? At that moment, Ling Shuang and her mother, Lady Ling, walked over. Their demeanor lacked the usual respect. The Ling family had previously relied on pleasing the Xue family to gain advantages. Lady Ling usually showed much respect and deference to Yunru in exchange for their prosperous lifestyle. However, due to the recent accident, the Xue family stopped supporting the Ling family's business, causing a significant rift between the two families. However, the usually obsequious Lady Ling seemed unusually pleased. She triumphantly said, "Yunru, you're also here. My daughter, Ling Shuang, is about to marry into the Ji family. I brought her here for some skincare treatment." Ling Shuang shyly explained that she had only been on a few dates with the young master of the Ji family while smugly glancing at Xue Xue. A few days ago, she needed to flatter Xue Xue, but now, if she could marry into the Ji family, her status wouldn't be comparable to Xue Xue's. Yunru was displeased and retorted, "Stop dreaming. How could the young master of the Ji family be interested in you?" Lady Ling chuckled triumphantly, saying, "After Ling Shuang marries into the Ji family, we will treat you well." Angrily, Yunru pulled Xue Xue away. Ling Shuang watched them leave and thought to herself, "Just wait and see, I won't let you live well." Xue Xue turned back to Ling Xuang, who was still smug, and said, "We'll see each other at the banquet." According to her memories from her past life, something quite exciting would indeed happen at the banquet. Xue Xue encountered her malicious cousin, Ling Xuang, who flaunted her ambiguous relationship with the young master of the Ji family and seemed prepared to sabotage Xue Xue at the upcoming banquet. Yunru, infuriated by the events that led to her departure from the Ling family, sat in the car heading home. Growing increasingly irate, she blamed Xue Xue for not being outstanding enough, questioning why she couldn't excel enough to make the young master from the Ji family admire her. Xue Xue observed her mother in such a state and a hint of mockery flashed in her eyes. Yunru grasped Xue Xue's hand with a coercive tone. "Xue Xue, no matter what means you use, you must attract the attention of the young master from the Ji family at this banquet." Yunru believed that since Xue Xue was so beautiful, as long as she took the initiative to flirt, what man could possibly resist her? Even though Yunru's wealth was already astonishing, her greed drove her to desire even more riches, even at the cost of letting her daughter sacrifice herself without scruples. Seeing her mother's ambitious eyes, Xue Xue chose not to argue further, merely responding perfunctorily, "I understand, mother." After all, she couldn't awaken someone pretending to be asleep. Xue Xue's casual attitude further angered Yunru. However, as Xue Xue was raised by old Master Xue, Yunru dared not reprimand her further. Driver Uncle Qin, witnessing the scene, couldn't help but sigh inwardly, someone willing to sacrifice their own daughter for money and power. Suppressing her anger, Yunru returned home, greeted by a sweet voice, "Mom, you're back." The sudden address of "Mom" from the girl shocked the housekeeper and servants. Seeing their reaction, the girl panicked and cried, "Auntie, I'm sorry. I just felt you were exceptionally gentle, just like my mother in my dreams, so I took the liberty to call you that." However, the girl's act failed to move Yunru. She had long noticed the girl wasn't as innocent and lovely as she seemed, initially planning to find an opportunity to send her back to the orphanage, but now, looking at the girl's doll-like face, Yunru formulated a plan. If her own daughter was unwilling to seduce the young master from the Ji family, perhaps this girl in front of her could. With this in mind, she gently stroked the girl's head. "Ro, from now on, you are part of our Xue family." The girl was overjoyed. "Can I really call you Mom?" Ro hugged Yunru tightly, casting a challenging glance at Xue Xue, as if to say, "See, your mother has become mine in the blink of an eye, and everything you have will soon be mine too." Last life's history replayed itself again, and the malicious younger sister Xue Ro successfully became a daughter of the Xue family once more. How will Xue Xue respond? Late at night, Xue Ro sat alone on her bed, relieved that she no longer had to endure the orphanage director's husband's kisses and touches for a bit of privilege. She clenched the blanket fiercely, a fierce expression on her face. One day, she vowed to destroy that orphanage in her own filthy past. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. She put on a sweet smile and said, "Come in." The maid entered, holding a dress. She placed it down expressionlessly. "This is the dress prepared for you. The makeup artist is waiting in the dressing room." Xue Ro felt a surge of displeasure at the maid's cold tone. How could such a lowly servant be so indifferent to her? As the maid was about to leave, Xue Ro called her back. "Stop. Apologize to me." Her tone was scornful and cold, a stark contrast to her former doll-like image. The maid, puzzled, asked, "Why should I apologize?" Xue Ro snorted. "Does a servant need a reason to apologize to the master?" She then picked up the dress nearby and, using a blade, tore it. She smiled maliciously. "An apology now won't do. You've ruined my dress. How do you intend to compensate?" Despite her innocent face, her words were venomous. "Perhaps someone envies my status as the second Miss Xue or was instructed to intentionally ruin my clothes to prevent me from attending the banquet." Shocked by Xue Ro's shamelessness, the maid loudly protested her innocence as Xue Ro smirked, then threatened the maid, "Ruining this expensive dress will cost you your job. If you can accuse Miss Xue of being the mastermind behind this, maybe you'll be exempt from compensation." The maid, angry and fearful, didn't expect Xue Ro to be so scheming, trying to frame and implicate Miss Xue. Continuing, Xue Ro said, "My room has no surveillance. You can't prove you didn't do it. Either you pay for the dress, or you stand up and accuse Xue Xue of making you ruin it. She excitedly imagined that Xue Xue might be banned from the event because of this, leaving her as the sole attendee from the Xue family, inevitably becoming the center of attention. Although there's no surveillance, what about audio recordings? Xue Xue pushed open the door. Shaking her phone in her hand, Xue Ro was momentarily speechless. Frightened, Xue Xue asked the maid to leave, stating that she would handle the matter. Once the maid left, Xue Ro immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. "I didn't mean it. I won't do it again." As Xue Xue stroked the girl's long hair, she remembered in her past life being kicked by Xue Ro with high heels, rendering her unable to stand. Yet, this time, Xue Ro was kneeling before her. Xue Xue struggled to suppress the urge to knock down Xue Ro and gently said, "Don't worry, I won't tell mother. But, can you promise me something, little sister?" Looking at the gentle Xue Xue, Xue Ro felt a chill down her spine. Meanwhile, at the Ji family estate, a young man with a magnificent silver cloak draped over him, his exquisite features exuding a cold aura. This young man was the protagonist of the Ji family's banquet, Ji Yong. As the Ji family's event was about to begin, the mysterious heir of the Ji family, the fantasizing Ji family cousin Ling Shuang, the past fiancé Ling Qin, the malicious younger sister Xue Ro. With everyone harboring their own intentions, what kind of story would unfold next?